The email came in at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday. I know the exact time because I remember looking at the clock on my microwave when I got up to get a glass of water, and the laptop was still open on the kitchen table where I'd left it. I wasn't planning to look at it. I just did. Craig told me 2 weeks before that I didn't even know how email works. He said it while closing his laptop, standing up to leave the room. He said it the way you'd say someone doesn't know how to parallel park. Mildly, as a fact, almost kind. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was just telling me what he believed. I want you to hold that sentence. We'll come back to it. Welcome to Real Life Verdict. Get comfortable. The people in this story had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment, hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed. My name is Willard. I am 64 years old. I ran a commercial electrical contracting business for 31 years. I started as a journeyman carrying wire through school corridors at 6 in the morning, and I finished bidding municipal contracts on warehouse builds that took 2 years to complete. I did not get rich. I got paid, and I stayed solvent, and I built something that lasted. There is a difference between those things, and most people never figure that out. I drive a 2004 Ford Ranger with 187,000 miles on it. The passenger seat has a coffee stain that's been there since 2013, and it'll be there when the truck dies. I teach Tuesday nights at the Technical College, Electrical Code and Job Estimation, from a binder I compiled in 1996. The pages are soft at the corners. The students think it's funny. I don't change it because the code doesn't change as much as people think, and because somebody taught me the same way 40 years ago in a classroom that smelled like machine oil and cigarettes. My kitchen table has paperwork on it most mornings. County permit applications. Old job files. The laptop my daughter made me buy. Craig Duffy started as my lead foreman in 2006. He was 39 years old and he knew how to read a blueprint and talk to a general contractor without making anyone feel stupid. That is rarer than it sounds. By 2010, I trusted him with the jobs I couldn't be at. By 2015, when my knees told me they were done with field work, I brought him in as a 50-50 partner. He bought half of what I built for a fair price, and we shook hands over it, and I meant the shake. When I sold him my remaining share in March of 2023, he told me the business wouldn't exist without me. He said it in the mediator's conference room with a pen in his hand before he signed. I believed him. I had no reason not to. I stayed on as a non-voting advisor through March of 2026. View-only access to the bank account. Still on the vendor email list. Craig handled operations. I occasionally answered questions about old permits or contractor relationships. That was the arrangement. That was what I understood the arrangement to be. The first thing that was slightly wrong. I didn't see it as wrong at the time, which is the thing about first things. In October of 2023, I stopped by the warehouse to pick up a ladder I'd left in storage. Craig was there. He was loading wire spools into a white box truck. No company logo, just a plain white truck with an out-of-state plate I didn't think to read. He said it was a side job for a friend. I nodded. I got my ladder. I drove home. I've thought about that afternoon many times in the months since. Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024, 10 in the morning. The company office on Route 9, which I still had a key to because nobody had asked for it back. Craig and I were doing the quarterly invoice review, which was my idea and which Craig had started tolerating instead of welcoming, which itself was a shift I noticed but did not flag. I had 3 vendor invoices in front of me. More in supply. Eastside Wire and Cable, a conduit distributor out of Allentown. All 3 showed payment on the company's side. All 3 vendors had called me, not Craig, to ask about overdue balances. I put the invoices on the table. I asked Craig to explain the gap. He said it was a bookkeeping error. He said these things happen in transitions. He closed his laptop. He stood up. Then he said it. You don't even know how email works. He said it without heat, without cruelty. The way you close a subject. He picked up his jacket and he left, and I sat in that office for a moment with those 3 invoices on the table in front of me. I did not chase him down the hall. I did not raise my voice. I did not call him back. I want you to understand something about me. I spent 31 years in rooms where men twice my size wanted to win arguments louder than they could win them on the merits. I learned a long time ago that the man who needs the room to know he's angry has already lost something. I folded the invoices. I put them in my jacket pocket. I had one more thing to check. I didn't know yet what it was. 17 days later, at 11:47 on a Friday night, I found out. I wasn't planning to open the laptop. I was getting a glass of water, but it was open, and the screen was still lit, and there was an email at the top of the inbox I hadn't read yet. The subject line said, "Delivery confirmation, Easton, PA." I set the glass down. The email was from Morin Supply, one of the vendors who'd called me about the overdue balance. It confirmed delivery of 6 spools of 500 MCM copper wire, 3 conduit benders, a wire tugger, and 2 fluke meter kits. Delivered April 16th. The delivery address was 428 Lawson Avenue, Easton, Pennsylvania. I didn't recognize that address. I searched it. Residential property, rental. The deed listed the owner as Travis Howell. I searched Travis Howell. His Facebook profile said he was Craig's brother-in-law. I read the email again. I read the address again. I stood there for a moment in my kitchen with the refrigerator running, and the clock on the microwave reading 11:52. I did not sleep much that night. I want you to stay with me here because this is where everything I thought I understood started to come apart. The next morning I pulled up the business bank account on my phone. I still had view-only access under the advisor agreement. Craig had never changed that, because I don't think it occurred to him that I ever looked. I scrolled back through April's deposits, and there it was. May 3rd, $48,000. Memo line, insurance settlement, theft claim. I opened my email and searched for the claim. It was dated April 18. 2 days after the equipment was delivered to Pennsylvania, the claim said the equipment was stolen from the warehouse on the night of April 15th. It listed 6 spools of 500 MCM copper wire, 3 conduit benders, a wire tugger, and 2 fluke meter kits. The same equipment. Filed as stolen. Delivered to Craig's brother-in-law. I printed everything. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. Now here is what I did not do. I did not call Craig. I did not call Monica, his wife. I did not call anyone at the warehouse. I did not drive to Pennsylvania. I did not do any of those things. What I did was go back through the inbox. Every supplier email, every delivery confirmation I'd been receiving for 2 years that I'd mostly ignored because I assumed they were sent directly to me. I had not been on that mailing list intentionally. I know that now. In April of 2022, when Morin Supply merged their customer database with a larger distributor, their system combined the contact records for our account and CC'd both Craig's address and mine on all correspondence going forward. Neither of us noticed, Craig because he never looked at CC lines, and me because I assumed I was the primary recipient. For 14 months, every supplier email Craig received, I received too. In a folder I barely checked. On a laptop my daughter made me buy. I had not understood what I had. I went through the archive. I flagged every delivery confirmation that listed the Easton, Pennsylvania address. I found 8 of them. 8 separate shipments, dating back to June of 2023. Tools, wire, conduit benders, meter equipment. None of it I could find on the company's books. All of it ordered under our business account. $31,000. Before the insurance claim, I wrote the number down. I looked at it for a while. The next morning, Saturday, Ruth Haberman knocked on my front door. She lives 4 blocks away. She'd called the night before, and I told her I had something I needed to show her. She walked in, saw the kitchen table, and did not ask me what it was or how long it had been there. She sat down and looked at the printouts. Ruth ran my books for 22 years. She knows every vendor, every payment schedule, every account number I ever opened. She retired the same month I sold my share. When she got up from the table after 20 minutes, she said 7 words. "I'll get the binder. You'll need every payment record we kept." She didn't ask me if I was sure. She didn't ask me what I wanted to do about it. She just said what the next step was, and she went to get what we'd need to take it. 22 years of working together will make someone that direct. I was grateful for it. The following Monday I drove to Leonard Puckett's office above the hardware store on Main Street. Leonard is a mediator and arbitrator. He keeps a carpenter's pencil behind his ear even though he hasn't framed a building in 8 years. I brought a manila folder with the printed emails, the bank statements, and Ruth's cross-reference payment records. He read for 11 minutes without saying anything. I know because I watched the clock on his wall. He set the folder down. He said, "This isn't borderline, Willard. This is prison if they want it to be." He asked me how I wanted to proceed. I told him I wanted to use the dispute resolution clause in the dissolution agreement. I wanted the arbitration hearing. I wanted the insurance fraud complaint filed with the state regulator. I wanted Craig served with notice. Leonard asked me if I was certain. He said that once the complaint was filed, there was no pulling it back. I told him I understood that. He asked me one more time, not to talk me out of it, just to make sure. I did not reconsider. Now I have to tell you something I have not told you yet, something that Craig didn't know, something that I didn't fully understand myself until I sat at that table in April going through 2 years of archived emails, when Moore & Supply merged their database in April of 2022 and accidentally CC'd me on Craig's account correspondence. Craig never noticed. He didn't read CC lines. He had no reason to believe anyone else was receiving what he was receiving. He ordered materials, got confirmations, diverted equipment, and assumed the only set of eyes on those transactions was his own. He was wrong about that for 14 months, and on April 19, 2024, at 11:37 p.m., I opened a delivery confirmation for 6 spools of wire and 2 fluke meter kits that were sitting at his brother-in-law's rental property in Pennsylvania, and I finally understood what I'd been holding the entire time. April 28, a process server knocked on Craig's door at 9 in the morning. He handed Craig an envelope. Inside was the arbitration hearing notice, the insurance fraud complaint, and a motion to terminate the buyout agreement for cause. The hearing was scheduled for April 30th at 2 in the afternoon. Craig called my phone 4 times in the next hour. I watched it ring. April 30th, 2 o'clock. A conference room in the county courthouse annex, no windows. A long table with 8 chairs and a court reporter in the corner. I sat on one side. Craig sat on the other with the attorney he'd hired 2 days before. Leonard sat to my right. Ruth sat behind me with the binder. The mediator sat at the head of the table. Leonard opened the first binder and walked through it methodically. The delivery manifests, the insurance claim, the bank deposit, the property record showing Travis Howell as the owner of 428 Lawson Avenue, the 8 prior shipments, Ruth's cross-referencing of every vendor payment against company books for 9 years. Phil Kostecki came in when he was called. He was wearing the same Carhartt jacket he wore every day I knew him. He had a laminated photo of his grandkids taped inside his hard hat, which he held in his lap at the table. He said he loaded what he was told to load, and he figured it was a side job. He didn't look at Craig when he said it. Then the mediator asked me if I wanted to add anything to the record. I did. I told him that approximately 2 weeks before I found the insurance claim, Craig and I had a disagreement over unpaid vendor invoices. I told him that Craig ended the conversation by telling me I didn't even know how email works. I reached into my folder. I slid a printed document across the table. It was the Moran Supply mailing list, the merged database from April 2022. My name was on the CC line. Had been for 14 months. Every order, every receipt, every confirmation. I said I had been receiving a copy of every supplier email Craig received since April of 2022. I said Craig never noticed. I said there were 8 shipments to the same address in Pennsylvania before the one I saw on April 19th, and I had every confirmation in the binder behind me. Craig's attorney asked for a recess. The mediator denied it. The ruling came 40 minutes later. The buyout agreement was terminated for cause. Craig was required to repay the $62,000 already received under the agreement and forfeit his claim to future payments. The evidence was referred to the State Insurance Fraud Division and the County Prosecutor's Office for review. Craig's attorney told him to stop talking. I picked up my binders. I thanked the mediator. I walked out. Ruth was beside me in the parking lot. The afternoon was cold and still, I could hear trucks on the highway 2 blocks over. My Ranger was parked at the far end of the lot. Old habit, leave the close spots for the crew. I unlocked it. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment with my hands on the wheel. There's a coffee stain on the passenger seat that's been there since 2013. I looked at it for a second. Then I called my daughter. I told her it was over. I told her I wasn't going back to that office again. I drove home with the windows down a little, even though it was cold. Some things you just need the air on your face for. Craig told me I didn't know how email works. He was right that I'm not fast with technology. I'll grant him that. I still use the same 3-ring binder from 1996 on Tuesday nights. The pages are soft at the corners and the students think it's funny. But I spent 31 years learning how to notice things. A blueprint that doesn't add up, an invoice that doesn't match. A white truck with no company logo, and an out-of-state plate. You don't need to be fast. You just need to be patient. And you need to know what you're looking at when you finally look.